Morning.
Good morning.
Hey guys.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hello. I think we can start. We are all here. So let's try the POC that Skarbek and I prepared yesterday so that we can show it and then we can discuss all the things that we don't like about it. So
Awesome.
Okay, so this is the merge request. The idea is that we can change Mailroom a registry version with variables, and we can use the feature of environment scope variables so that we can change them or override them in specific environment. The change is really simple. Basically, in the KCTL, we added a function that generates a new Helm value files that get appended as the last one. So those values has precedences over everything else. And that's it. So this is what we are doing. On top of that, we decided to publish as an artifact this file so that we can inspect the result of the build. But let's take a look at this on ops. So and it's in this project here. So we created these variables yesterday, but let me check again. So CI/CD variables. Okay, this is recorded, but so I'm not going to, if you want. Okay, so now I'm going to start a pipeline that should just tell us that nothing changes, because these are the variables that are already deployed, the version that are already deployed. So we can run a pipeline on my branch, which is this one. So run. Okay, so let's hope that this one is faster. Picking one. Okay, so no changes found. And so no changes is found. And we'll try to, okay, I will not inspect the content of this file because we will download it, but I just show that the CI YAML file get saved as an attachment. And so we can go back to the build. So succeeded. If we go to the gprod, no changes also here. Canary, no changes, and pre, no changes as well. Now, let's try to roll back this version on, let's say, staging. Now that we have changed the variable only for staging, we can rerun this. And what we expect is to see an Helm diff with a different version only on staging, obviously. Changes found, and here is the diff. He's proposing a downgrade of the image, and as we say, this is staging. If we go, cool, just checking the others, so no changes, prod, no changes, canary, no changes. That's it.
Cool. What do you don't like about this? Because you said that there was something you don't like.
Well, we really lose control over flipping those. I mean, we brought a piece of software, even if it's just a simple shell script that handle from variables to values. We can write a simple script that commits this. So the point is, what are we trying to do here? Because are we thinking that we want to run this on a schedule and then independently we change the values and just upgrade the same as a Chef server is running, and then you have Chef clients that just picking up changes and upgrading the fleet? Because I got this impression. So we were discussing this yesterday. We kind of have this feeling that we are, let's say, losing control over the process, or maybe just because, for instance, we are not sure we can trigger a pipeline with a variable just for a single environment. Because otherwise it could have been nice to say, as soon as we build the package in CNG, sorry, not CNG, in the charts, trigger a pipeline that upgrades the variable, that runs the deployment with the upgraded version. What I understood from this is that indeed we are thinking about this master process that runs continuously and make sure, it's kind of building Kubernetes on top of Kubernetes. Because you have Kubernetes that has a state, and applied Kubernetes itself, it's just an orchestrator. It has a state of the deployment, and if something changes, you just kill the things and replace them. And this is the same thing, because we have a CI script job that runs every 5 minutes, every hour, whatever, has a known state of the system. And if this, and applies that state to the cluster in that case. So, I was not the only one with some complaints about this.
I had some specific complaints. One is that the primary concern for me is that we lose a bit on the promotion aspects of the pipeline if we have this set in variables. In other words, it's really nice to be able to bump the version and then sort of see the pipeline go from staging, some cases canary, and then production. If we are setting versions and variables, we kind of lose that promotion a bit. Now, of course, ideally we would be CI/CD, right? And we would be setting the version in the repository, and then that version would be promoted through the stages. Now, if we set it in a variable, you would have maybe this same variable for all environments, and you would just set that. And I don't know, it's just like you still have that promotion, right? Because when you set the variable, then the pipeline would run, and it would run one stage at a time, and you'd be able to see it. But it's just like a lot nicer if it's committed to the repository. And I'm not really seeing the benefits of having this set in a CI variable, except for the ability to trigger the pipeline and with a variable set. And I think that's originally where this came from, right? Is that we want to trigger this pipeline as early as possible, as soon as the CNG image is available. And it seemed a bit nicer to do it this way than to actually use the API to like commit the file to the repository and then trigger, right? It was just like, we just trigger and we set the variable name in the trigger. I don't know though, like it still doesn't really feel right to me.
I feel like we also lose a bit of the auditability. Like, sure, we could look at this artifact and determine when a change made it in, but it's a little sluggish to figure that out because there's a lot of pipelines that run throughout these tools. If we could find a commit and tie that directly to a job, that's much easier than what this introduces.
Okay, couple of items there. I understand the variable is not super transparent. This is why we can also discuss how can we get whatever was added to the variable committed wherever. So if you want to skip that step of adding it to a variable and just committing it directly, that is absolutely fine. If you, I'm saying universally, you're not anyone individually, by the way. If you consider that you have any sort of confidence by you yourself committing a thing and then looking at the pipeline and seeing it roll out, if that's what I'm understanding from this discussion, then I don't agree with that, because we want to build a system that will alert us and not a system that we will have to monitor ourselves and look at the pipeline every single minute. So I'm fine if variable is not the shortest solution. We can just use the API and commit like you suggested, right? Like we are doing right now with our auto deployer. Perfectly fine with that. But I just want to like get away from a situation where we have to be the ones committing something. Like that is my primary concern. Like I don't want a single SRE or a backend engineer to go in here and be able to commit themselves unless we have urgent, like we have edge cases, right? Like I'm not going to discuss those, but I want a fully automated system that will be triggered from all the way upstream, right? Like someone committed or merged something into master in GitLab, that should build an image, that should build a CNG image, so production ready Docker image. That once that is done, that should trigger a commit or a variable or whatever we built in here that will then roll it through the staging, roll it to other non-production environments. And then finally, we should have a gate where this does not go to production without us knowing about it, whether that is through logging somewhere in the audit log that, hey, this is going to happen, you've been informed, we are moving on, or it's stop the world situation where you need to click the button yourself to progress it further. Are we at least aligned on that?
I do agree that I mean, I don't want to babysit the system forever. We are still kind of used to it because we don't trust the system that we have right now, but we can see the difference with the Italy team right now. It's lampant. I mean, it's a new word for them, and we had no major, we had no major problems so far, knocking on wood. But so I do agree on this. But inspectability will still be important. So if we can figure out a system that is easier to inspect, because under the pressure of an outage or whatever, you want to clearly understand what happened.
When we last discussed this, I was also sort of under the impression, and kind of still under the impression, that the best way to go is going to be to use Helm, use the charts repository as a source of truth for versions, using the app versions that are set there, and not setting individual versions, in the k8s workloads project. Now, I understand the downsides of this. I know that charts takes a long time to build and it's not cheap, but in the world where, let's say, a charts version bump was cheap and like it happened within like a minute or something like that, then you could envision a situation where you have a new image of registry in CNG that automatically triggers a version bump in charts, and then that triggers k8s workloads, GitLab.com with a charts version bump, right?
I mean, it's fine. Like, I understand what you're saying there. You just want to make sure that we don't bridge over the Helm chart completely, but that we have a clear path, the same way we have with Omnibus right now, right? Like, there is a reason why this is actually, not reason, there is a level of confidence this gives us, right? Ensuring that, oops, I think my connection is dropping a bit. There is a level of confidence that this gives us. So if you want to bridge it that way over, but then build a system inside of the charts so that they can be updated continuously, I'm more than up for that, because they also have review apps there running on master, running in both GKE and EKS, and adding more. So there is some level of confidence that things that are being merged there are fine. So if that becomes our trigger point for actually GitLab.com deployment, sure, absolutely. We don't have to bridge it. As long as we don't have to do anything manual ourselves, and we can find a way to build alerting for ourselves on .com, and like in our pipelines build any sort of gates that we need to ensure that production doesn't just get things without our control, or at least our knowledge. It doesn't have to be controlled. So I'm up for that.
Yeah, the problem is it significantly slows us down until we break charts out, break the subcharts out of the OmniChart repository, right? Because, you know, a simple version bump of registry is going to require tests of all of the charts to do all of the, you know, integration tests that they have in that project before we can deploy. If registry was broken out into its own chart, then you would just test that, right? And it probably would be a lot faster.
Right, but that gives you zero confidence that all systems in unison are actually functioning.
Yeah,
because you have dependency in between.
So I guess,
right?
like, yeah, so I guess there's like three scenarios. One is that we just take the version bump with the version of the Helm chart we have, and we hope it works. The other scenario is that registry chart is split out so that at least you have compatibility between the registry version and the chart specific to registry, right? Like the configuration of registry in the chart, at least that will be compatible. And then the third option is like to make sure everything is compatible, which is the OmniChart approach. I guess that's the safest way, is just to like let OmniChart be, or Omnibus chart, or the charts repo be the source of truth for all the app versions, and we just wait until that full test is completed and then we deploy. I mean, that's sort of what we do now for Omnibus. My biggest concern about doing the registry, you know, image bump with like an old version of charts is that there's something specific in the registry subchart that hasn't been tested yet against the registry version, right?
Sure, but that can be handled by ensuring that we deploy to staging environments and non-production environments automatically, right? Things will break there, and that is fine.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's better than the alternative.
There is another thing.
Yeah.
So let's agree on one set of terminology here, because we are mixing. We have a potential of mixing things up. We have a current chart. Let's call that the Omni chart, right? It has everything. We have individual charts. We'll call them individual charts, and they are part of the Omni chart, right? And then we have the canonical repositories of various GitLab components. Let's call them canonical repositories. So GitLab, Gitali, whatever else, right? So the option of Omni chart being our source of truth, we can do certain things in that chart and make it in the Omni chart and make it better than what Omnibus is right now. We can test things individually there as well by saying, for example, every time there is a bump in registry, we trigger a pipeline that will be registry enabled equals 1, and that will only run the build of the registry and whatever else there, right? Like we can specify it that way. And instead of having the option of let's split this all up, we have the option by default, all of these things run in unison, but you have the control options of saying, I just want this part to run certain set of tests or build an image or whatever, or trigger something in my repository. So we can do that if we want to. And theoretically, that should bring the omni charts / individual charts, like that mid ground that we are looking for.
Yeah, that to me sounds like the best option, and you're totally right. Like we could have like in the pipeline, it could be only changes in the subdirectory that run a subset of tests, and that would make it a lot faster. Or if there's a version bump for the app version for registry, it only runs registry stuff. And this is to me the ideal. And then what would happen, I think, would be after those tests run, then we would bump the version. Like charts would be, we'd have a new release of charts. And then we would either trigger a new pipeline of workloads, or we would bump the Helm version. And then we get rid of all of these version overrides in our values files, right? Like we would just have just the chart version.
You'll have to repeat this whole thing one more time. Just give me a chance to switch to 4G.
Oh, sure. Just tell me when you're ready.
Actually, you know what? This is recorded. I can see the recording after the fact. So let's say we agreed. You could have just literally like taken everything you wanted right now. But let's say we agreed, because I think I understand the concept that we are discussing here, and I think we are in agreement. So maybe let's go down that route, and let's investigate that, and let's see what benefit it gives us. I agree with you all that variables is less transparent, and it's easier to do, but it's definitely less transparent and doesn't allow us the controls that we need, or the gates at least that we need. So thanks for doing that POC. I think it was very much worth it to expose these things, even though we could have guessed it already. Cool. Do we want to talk mailroom, or should we discuss anything else about this?
The only thing I wanted to mention, I created an issue for this to track, but the dev registry was, I think there's a bug that DJ and Jason were working on that prevented the mailroom registry from having an updated version of the image. So during local testing, I found out I was still pulling the old version of the image that did not include certain changes. I still have an open issue for that and tracking out what needs to happen to get that newer image available to us. But right now, I would not want to try to push Mailroom into production at this moment in time, just due to this simple situation right now.
I thought I saw DJ pushing a merge request that fixes this, and it's already merged, right?
It's merged, but I'm still pulling the old image. So I don't know what updates the dev registry, and I'm still trying to figure that out. Or try to get answers about it.
I wonder whether because it's there was no image bump, tag bump.
There was a note from Jason that they need to do another release. So I asked the question if this is tied to releases somehow.
All right, cool. What is left for us to do there with Mailroom to push it out, apart from this thing that you just mentioned?
I've got an open merge request for the network policies, but that's not a blocker in my opinion. Beyond that, I think we're ready to go.
All right. Let's do it then. Jarv, could you ensure that the readiness review is ready for review? So make sure that all of that is in shape. And John, or the other John Scarlett, could you make sure that you work with distribution today to get that done? Jarv, basically for you, another question would be socialize this with the rest of the department. So discuss this with SREs, invite them into the conversation there, or familiarize them at least. And we'll, let's put the next week, Tuesday. Let's say next week, Tuesday, as our cutover time for this. You're all okay with that?
So there were maybe a couple issues that I thought we would wait on before going into production. One is this updating the app version of Mailroom chart during the release. This issue in the Zoom chat. So Skarbek, do you think that we should? I mean, I was thinking we would wait until this was done for going to production. Do you agree or not agree? And I guess there isn't too much risk here just because like the version of Mailroom never really changes. But so I would say, in my opinion, like, yes, it's something that we really need to get done, but yeah, maybe not necessary to go to production. But maybe we could talk to Balu to see like whether we can get this done quickly.
Let's invite the distribution team there. So not only
Okay.
Balu, escalate. I can also escalate. Let's see.
Sure.
Only Balu is in here, so I'll first ping the distribution team. I'll do that. Skarbek, what do you think?
I kind of agree. I was aware of this issue, but I forgot about it. So we do need this kind of version controlled.
And also, is the Mailroom version bump going to happen before we go to prod or not?
No, that merge request is still open, and they're still working on the omnibus portion of things as well. So I don't see that happening for the next 1 or 2 weeks.
Cool. Yeah, then I think this is like then probably the last remaining issue, and I think we're good. So we plan on next week, depending on the outcome of this conversation. Plan on next week to go to production.
I would suggest so, because I want to get this out of our queue as fast as possible so that we can work on this other thing that is way, way, way more important. Because any changes with Sidekick that we want to do next, we can't do until we actually have this in step with what we do in production right now. Because any sort of diff inversions between what we have deployed with Omnibus and what we would have deployed with charts in Sidekick could actually cause an outage. So the sooner we have that system in place, the better for all of us.
Cool.
All right, so repetition here. Jarv is going to ensure that the readiness review is ready and that the rest of the reliability teams are invited to the discussion prior to us doing the cutover next week. I'm going to go and chase the distribution team to ask the issue that you linked, 1668, to ensure that we have some movement on it. I'm gonna say this is P2, not P1 for sure. It's not blocking us from anything, but it could cause issues if an image bump or Mailroom bump, version bump happens. Skarbek, you're going to go and do these last steps that you found out yesterday, right? Like make sure to see like why the Mailroom image does not contain the changes that we need. Who wants to lead the discussion, or rather the write-up of the discussion we just had about how are we going to trigger things between repositories?
I could do that. I'll respond on that issue that we created about it.
All right. Cool. Anything else that we should talk about now? All right. Well, that sounds good. We have action plan. So thanks, everyone.
Bye.